Welcome to International Pilates Day. So it's actually Saturday, but I thought today might be a better day to celebrate International Pilates Day. I'm away for the weekend. We'll do some Pilates on the beach. We'll see. So sitting up tall, either sitting on your mat, you could sit in a chair, you could sit on a yoga block, foam roller, stability ball, whatever you choose. And you're going to place your hands onto your belly. So fingertips are down by your pubic bone. Your palms are on your two bony hip points. You're near your thumbs are near your navel. And sitting up tall, take a deep breath into your belly. So if the belly, go forward into your hands. And as you breathe out, you draw your belly in toward your spine. So I'm going to turn sideways so you can see. Your belly is going to go forward as you breathe in through your nose. And it's going to draw in and like scooping up towards, like you're trying to draw your navel up towards where your bra strap clasps in the back. That's where you're trying to take your navel on your breath out. So as the navel is drawing in and up, the waist is cinching in. A couple more times. Again, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. We're going to add on to this breath today. We're going to do some Kegel sitting. So if you can do Kegels lying down, which is how I often do them in this class, is lying down. You can do them sitting, you can do them standing, you can do them in child's pose, you can do them in all sorts of positions. We're going to try them sitting, but if you feel like it's really difficult in this position, you could always come to lying on your back or come into child's pose and choose a different position. So our Kegel, some of my favorite Kegel cues is to imagine holding on to a tampon. So Kegels, they're named after Dr. Kegel, who created the Kegel exercises. I think back in like the 30s or 40s. I think it was 1940s. And he used to recommend 200 Kegels a day. Not necessary. You do not need to do 200 Kegels a day. A handful of Kegels or two can be useful. But definitely go to a pelvic floor physical therapist. If you have any pelvic floor concerns, they can let you know exactly what you should and should not be doing. I'm going to try some Kegels today. So again, my favorite cue is to imagine holding on to a tampon to activate what we call the pelvic floor. That's what those muscles are called, also called Kegel muscle. Another cue is imagine the doors of an elevator. So you think when elevator doors are closing this way, imagine our elevator doors are closing this way. Like your elevator doors are close to the floor. You're going to close the doors and then think of the elevator going up. Okay, those pelvic floor muscles that we're trying to activate. And then we're going to try, if this is your first time doing a Kegel, just focus on closing those elevator doors and going up, a little lift. And then going back down and opening the doors. So going down, the relaxing of the pelvic floor, the expansion of the pelvic floor is just as important as the tightening and the lifting of the pelvic floor. For some people, it's even more important than the Kegel itself. Or your idea of holding onto a tampon and taking that tampon up, lifting it up, and then letting the tampon out, open the pelvic floor. So again, you can do this without any connection with the breath. Just focus on doing the Kegel. If you want a little stronger Kegel, try it on an exhale. So your breath in through your nose, no Kegel. Breath out. That's where the pelvic floor, the elevator doors close and lift. Breathe in. Elevator goes down, the doors open. Breathe out, close and lift, which might feel a little counterintuitive at first. And then lower back down and relax as you breathe in. Breathe out, do your Kegel. So as the waist is cinching in, the navel is drawing in, the pelvic floor is lifting. When you're breathing in, the rib cage is expanding, the belly is expanding, the pelvic floor relaxes back down towards your mat. For the tampon. One more time. Good. Now, relax the pelvic floor. Just know your body naturally does a little tiny Kegel every time you breathe out. So you're constantly doing little Kegels. The big purposeful Kegels are just to remind your body what it's supposed to be doing naturally. Let's change our breathing. You're going to slide your hands up to your rib cage. Don't worry about the pelvic floor for now. You're going to inhale into your rib cage, breathing into the sides of your ribs. Exhale, cinching your waist, scoop out those abdominals, draw your navel in and up to where your bra strap clasps in the back. A couple more breaths. This is how we're going to focus our breathing for the rest of the class. Focus on the rib cage expanding. And as you breathe out, the waist cinches in, the navel draws in. So keep that breathing going. Relax your hands just down into your lap or down by your sides. Bring your shoulders up to your ears and relax your shoulders back down. Now, as far as when to breathe in and when to breathe out in Pilates, typically you breathe in on the easier part of the exercise and you breathe out on the harder part of the exercise. Now, if we're doing an exercise like shoulder shrugs and you can't really feel like, oh, this part's harder than that part, then you get to choose the breath. You can breathe in and lift the shoulders and breathe out as they lower, or you could breathe out, pick the shoulders up, breathe in and lower the shoulders. Either is fine. This is one exercise you can't easily determine what part of the exercise is harder than the other. Most important thing, keep breathing. Now reach your fingertips up towards the ceiling. Same exercise. So if it feels more comfortable, the arms can be in a V shape, or you could have the arms for a little more of a stretch, arms closer to your ears, whatever feels the best for you. But see if you can keep the elbows straight wherever those arms are. You're going to bring your shoulders up to your ears and shoulders down away from your ears. And shoulders up to your ears and down away from your ears. And again, breathing in, breathing out. Your choice on what part of the movement you breathe in and when you breathe out. Go with what feels most comfortable, most natural, or most helpful. A couple more times. And now we're going to do one shoulder at a time. So as you lift one shoulder up to the air, you're going to reach your fingertips towards the ceiling. You'll notice your body starts to side bend. That's good. And then switch. So as you try to reach the fingertips towards the ceiling, that shoulder is also lifting up towards the ear. And then you'll switch sides. And on the other side that's dropping, feel free to relax that elbow. You can even relax the arm all the way to the floor if that feels better. That's fine too. One more set. And then come back to center. If you have your legs like me with the legs crisscross applesauce, switch which leg is in front. If you're in a different leg position and your legs are a little more symmetrical, feel free to keep them as they are. Open your arms back out to a T. Keeping your arms parallel to the floor, keeping your pelvis still, sitting on the floor, sitting on a chair, whatever you're sitting on. You're going to shift the entire rib cage to one side of the pelvis. Again, arms stay parallel to the floor. And then shift to the other side. And your goal is to shift equally to one side and then over to the other side. You may notice it's easier to shift to one side. For me, I notice that's the side where I carry my kids. Or the laundry hamper. I know, oh, it's easier to shift that way. Oh, let me see if I can get it to match on the other side. And then also a note to self, put my kids on the other hip, put the laundry hamper on the other hip. Just to stretch myself out a little more equally, a little more balanced throughout the day. One more time, one more lateral glide, side to side, and then you'll come back to center. And then place one hand onto the mat or your towel or your blanket, whatever you're sitting on, or rug, and have it be sort of in the middle of your mat. So watch that your hand's not somewhere back here, but more in the middle, about a foot or so away from your leg. It could also slide out further, depending on how far you want to side bend. You're going to side bend over. And you could, again, slide the hand further out. You could bend the elbow and bring the elbow down towards the mat to increase the stretch. But we're going to stay here and hold it. So anytime you're holding a stretch, it should be comfortable. The longer you hold it, the stretching sensation should start to subside. If it's getting more intense, it's too deep of a stretch. And as you're side bending, you're breathing into the rib cage that's being stretched out. That lung, it's called one lung breathing. You're focusing on that side of the rib cage, that one lung. So in my case, it's my right lung. For you, it might be your left lung. If you feel like your head and neck need a little more support in this side bend while we're holding it, you can take your hand over to the opposite side of your cheek and temple and give your head a little support there too. That's an option. Or keep the arm out straight. And then sit yourself back up. Place the other hand onto the mat. And side bend. So again, in the middle of your mat, watch it's not somewhere back here as you side bend. And with side bend, you're imagining that you're in a very narrow space, that there's a wall right in front of your face and one right behind your head. And as you're side bending, you don't want to bang your head on the wall in front of you or the wall behind you. You're really just going sideways, but there's no twisting, no bending forward or backwards. And the one lung breathing, focusing on the side of the rib cage and the lung that has lots of room to expand. So for me, that's my left lung this time. For you, it might be your right lung, depending. If you're mirroring me, it'll be your right lung. And then sit yourself up. We're going to come to lying down. If lying completely flat isn't so comfortable, you're welcome to grab a pillow and place your head on a pillow. You could also grab a wedge pillow. That's another option to prop yourself up a little bit if that feels more comfortable. Here in Pilates, we don't truly believe in like no pain, no gain. Muscular effort, you might get fatigued, that's okay. But if you go, oof, this really doesn't feel good, then it's something you need to change something. So if lying flat does not feel good, there's nothing wrong with propping your head up with a little pillow. So we're going to do a little movement. We did our upper spine a lot when we were seated. It's time to focus on the lower spine. So you're going to have your knees bent, your feet slightly separated. So if you look down, you peek down, they're about 3 inches apart, which is about the size of your fist. So just a few inches apart, lined up with some bones, the bony parts of your pelvis that are called your sit bones or your ischial tuberosities. And the thigh bones will be the same distance apart as well. They're parallel to each other. You're going to take your waist. Your pelvis is staying on the mat the whole time. Your bra strap is staying on the mat the whole time. You're going to float your waist away from the mat. So you can even notice like your hand or your fingers might fit underneath there. And you'll notice that the pelvis is tipped forward. The back is starting to arch away from the mat. And then can you reverse that? So you're going to scoop out those abdominals to bring the waist down towards the mat. And you're tipping the pelvis towards you this time. So float your waist and see if you can coordinate with the breath. So for this exercise, I recommend breathing in as you lift the waist. Breathe out. You let those abdominals, bring your navel towards your spine, back where that bra strap clasps. And then breathe in, float the waist again. Breathe out, the waist comes down towards the mat. Now you're not forcing it into the mat. You're trying to breathe it into the mat. So as you're breathing, that belly should still be sinking down, 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 down towards your spine. And if it's going to pooch, 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 pooch towards the ceiling, then you're trying too hard. And I know that's a hard thing to do, is to not muscle through everything. You're going to breathe in, tip the pelvis forward, float the waist, tip the pelvis back towards you, scoop out those abdominals. A couple more times. I love this one in the morning. If you wake up a little stiff, great way to start the day, a great way to end the day also, lying in bed, doing a few pelvic tilts. And then find the spot that's approximately in the middle where your waist is floating a little bit. And you have these two bony hip points at the sides of your pelvis plus your pubic bone. They form a triangle. So neutral pelvis, what we call it, is where that triangle is parallel to whatever surface is in front of it. So in this case, our ceiling. And you see if you can keep that position. And pick up one foot, put it back down and switch. So we're bending at the hip joint, not bending at the spine, and marching. You can keep the knee pretty bent if that feels more comfortable, or you can keep the knee at about 90 degrees. Either is fine. And keep breathing. Your head and shoulders are relaxed. Let your eyeballs even relax in the sockets, either eyes open or eyes closed in this position. Your jaw is relaxed. The space between your eyebrows is relaxed. You don't want to create any wrinkle lines while we do Pilates. I'm going to pause with one leg up, either in tabletop or the heel hanging down in relaxed tabletop. This is the easier position for your hips and your back and your abdominals. This one's a little more challenging. Now take a breath in. Start to breathe out. Scoop out those abdominals. Pick the other leg up to join the first leg. Let's have both feet flexed. Again, either in tabletop or relaxed tabletop. Lower one heel down. So first take a breath in. As you breathe out, start to lower the heel. As you breathe in, pick the leg back up. I find the lowering to be the hardest part. Now, if you go, Jen, I disagree. Okay, then change your breathing. That's totally fine. And switch sides. And as we're slowly dropping one heel towards the floor and then the other, your choice in the breathing pattern, I recommend breathing out as you lower the heel, breathing in as you lift, but you're totally welcome to switch that if it makes more sense to you, but make sure you're breathing. If you're new to Pilates and trying to time your breath with the movement is just too much for your brain today, just keep breathing. And can you check that your head and shoulders are still relaxed as we move our legs? One more set. Now bring your legs all the way together. Let's point our toes and flex our feet and point our toes. If this is becoming too much for your thighs, feel free to relax and have the heels hang down towards your sit bones. You can have you place your hands onto your knees if you need a short break. One more time. Finish with the toes pointed. Relax tabletop or tabletop. Heavy head and shoulders. Lower your tippy toes down towards the mat. Squeezing the legs together and lift the legs back up. Your breath, keeping your navel drawing in on that exhale, keeping the head and shoulders heavy on the mat, keeping your neutral pelvis is more important than how close your toes get to the mat. So I'd rather see a small movement is really more effective than a big movement where your whole body's involved in it. For our purpose for today, does that mean you can't move like that? Of course not. Of course you can. But for today, for our purpose of doing some core work and working on a nice strong spine, the smaller movement's better. The smaller movement of the legs is better as long as the head and shoulders are heavy. That will be more effective than allowing the whole body to move. One more time. Hug your knees into your chest for a moment. Place your hands on your kneecaps and stir your knees in a circle. Especially if you're new to Pilates, that can be a lot for the thighs. Until the core gets a handle of what the heck is going on, it can be a lot of leg work at first. Once you get used to it, it becomes much more abdominal work and less legs. And then lower your feet back down. Still that sit bones width apart, that 3 inches apart or so. So it's Pilates stance is just a little down. So if you do yoga, you do other forms of exercise, they tend to have a slightly wider stance than Pilates. Pilates, we don't do hips distance apart. We do sit bones distance apart, which is just slightly in from the width of your hips. You're going to have all 10 toes pointed forward. Take a moment. Pick up your toes. Spread them out. Can you get them spread out like I'm spreading out my fingers? and nice and straight, and then put your toes back down onto the mat. Find your big toe all the way across to your pinky toe. Not just the toes themselves, but at the ball of the foot, the toe joint at the ball of the foot, all the way across to the pinky toe joint. And can you find the center of each heel? Or do you notice that with one foot, oh, it feels more like the inside of my heel or the outside of my heel? Can you find right in the center? Step into your feet, bridge your hips up. It's called a bridge. A half wheel is what it's called in yoga. A pelvic lift. There's some common names. And then you're going to bend at your hips and lower your bra strap and your tailbone back down at about the same time. So your waist for this bridge will not touch the mat. We're keeping our spine in a neutral, long position. It's not technically straight. It might feel straight. It has a bunch of curves actually, but it's long and stretched out and it feels straight. You're going to step into your feet, bridge your hips up. Crease at your hips, so bend at the hips, lower back down. If you start to feel crampy in the middle of the legs, in the back, the hamstrings, focus on your tush, your rear end, and where your hamstrings meet your tush. So it's called your gluteal fold. It's like where the bottom of your tush curves. That's and where your sit bones are located. Think of lifting it from there, and that will help decrease the chance of cramping. Now, if you're still cramping, keep your bridge closer to the mat. Pick up just a little bit and then lower back down. And for a Pilates bridge, our goal would be a straight line from our kneecaps sloping down to our shoulders. And that's not always the case for every type of bridge. Different styles may have something different. Yoga tends to go a little bit higher, but that's our goal for Pilates. But that's our goal, our end goal. So if you can only get about halfway up, that's not a problem at all. If you feel your glutes and hamstrings working, you're good. You might feel a little stretch on the front of the thighs, you're good. And then crease and lower back down. Bridge back up, lower back down. And as you're lifting, you're trying to lift those two bony hip points equally towards the ceiling and then lowering your pelvis straight back down. Now, do you notice that one side wants to go higher than the other? Just make that observation. See if you can correct it. You notice that as you lower, one side of the pelvis wants to come down first or heavier. Okay, make that observation and then see if you can correct it on the next one. Pilates, besides being obviously we're strength training here, it's also a lot about coordination, relieving stress, connecting our breath to our body helps to relieve stress. Exercise in general helps to relieve stress. Increasing lung capacity with all this deep breathing, and then working on our spatial awareness. So this is an example of spatial awareness. Besides being, an exercise for our legs, it's also, okay, what's my body doing? How's it moving? And can I have a little more control over how it's moving? Can I think about that? And that is a totally different part of your brain than what we use throughout much of the day. Much of the day, we're just reacting to the situations around us. And this is your chance to really pay attention and mindfully move, which can help all that reactionary movement throughout the rest of the day. One more time, you'll stay in your bridge, stretch both arms over your head, and place your hands back down by your sides. So we call this type of exercise Pilates. And it's named after Joseph Pilates, who was born in the 1880s in Germany. He helped rehab soldiers during World War I in Great Britain. He moved to the United States before World War II because were known as the Brown Coats, or the Nazi Party, wanted him to train their police force, and he was not interested. So he moved to New York City, had a wife named Clara. They opened a studio was called Contrology, which is something that he'd been creating his method while he was in Europe. It was named Contrology, or the study of control. You can see we have lots of controlled movements here. And then when he passed away in his 80s in the 1960s, the method was named after him by his students. One more time. And we do some classical Pilates exercises in my class. So exercises that Joseph Pilates actually created himself. And then we do other movements that are broken down versions of his to work on certain aspects of his exercises and lower your pelvis straight back down. We add in a little bit of yoga. So we add in some other contemporary movements. So the style of Pilates I teach, so while we're here, you're just with the arms wide, sway your knees to one side and sway your knees to the other side. Make sure you're breathing. For now, let the head roll with the knees. So Pilates is a spectrum. There is classical Pilates on one end, where the teachers teach essentially what Joseph Pilates taught, oftentimes in the same order of the exercises how he taught them. And then there's contemporary Pilates or rehab Pilates on the other end. I'm closer to the rehab or contemporary Pilates end, although I oftentimes will do sort of the classical order of things. Or I oftentimes will say, hey, this is the Joseph Pilates exercises. It's one that he actually did. But most of the exercises I do are also, bits and pieces of Joe's exercises. He initially trained a lot of professional movers. So some of his exercises are very, very challenging because they're made for, professional dancers, professional athletes. And most of my clients are not that. So I do a modified version, a lot of Joseph Pilates exercises, and then oftentimes we'll put those together and do one of his exercises. But it's all an umbrella that is now today called Pilates. Bring your kneecaps back up. You're going to bring both legs into tabletop. Most days I don't talk as much about, the history of Pilates, but it's International Pilates weekend. So you're going to hear all about Pilates today. So legs are pressing together. Let's have the toes pointing. You can also have the legs relaxed, but the thigh bones are going to start so that they are perpendicular, straight up and down to the mat. Squeeze your legs together. Press the backs of your arms into the mat. And for now, keep your gaze straight up towards the ceiling, either eyes open or eyes closed. So you're going to keep the legs again pressed together. Lift one side of your pelvis. Just sway the knees to one side. Only go as far as you can that your legs are still pressing together. And the shoulders and the arms are pressing and heavy into the mat. Bring your pelvis back to the mat. So you get to decide what part of this exercise, now sway to the other side, what part is the hardest part of the exercise? What part is the easier part? If you feel like one part's harder, then that's the part you breathe out on. So breathe in on the easier part, breathe out on the harder part. You determine which is which. I prefer to breathe in as I sway and breathe out as I bring my pelvis back to the mat, but that's not a set rule. You get to choose. If the opposite breathing pattern is better for you, go ahead and do it. If feet up in the air is like, oh geez, too much for me, Jen, the knees can be completely bent. If that is too much, keep the feet on the floor. Keep the legs pressed together, and you'll roll onto the outside of one foot, bring the feet back, the bottoms of the feet back onto the mat, and then roll onto the outside of the other foot. So for example, when I was, in my third trimester, this is how I did this exercise. So there's plenty of times where, it's not appropriate to have both feet off the floor at the same time. And you don't have to. So if you ever need to modify, you could always have one or both feet back on the floor and do a modified version of the exercise. One more set, swaying side to side. Come back to center. Separate your feet again. We're going to come back to that bridge. But this time, let's reach the fingertips towards the ceiling. Palms are facing forward. Find your big toe all the way across to your pinky toe in the center of your heels and step into your feet. Bridge your hips up. While you're in a bridge, stretch both arms over your head and bring your fingertips to the ceiling. And stretch both arms over your head and bring your fingertips to the ceiling. And if you start to feel crampy, remember, try to find where the bottom of your tush connects with your hamstrings and the pelvis, those hip bones called your gluteal fold, or lower your bridge a little closer to the mat. That can help. One more time with the arms. And then place your hands down by your sides. Now actively press the arms down into the mat. Can you keep your pelvis level? Can you shift your weight onto one foot and pick up the other foot? And it's actually easier to take a bigger step. So if you're new, pick the foot all the way up off the mat. And if you're a little more seasoned, it's actually harder to barely pick the foot up off the mat. So in this case, the smaller exercise is harder than the bigger one. And make sure you're breathing. As we do our marching steps, pressing the arms. We're actively using the arms for this bridge. One more set and then have weight back in both feet. Lower your bra strap and your tailbone so you crease at your hips. Lower back down. Stretch out both legs. Wiggle your legs for a moment. And then stretch both arms over your head. Reach your feet in one direction, your arms in the other direction. And then bring your legs all the way together. Keep one leg heavy on the mat where it is. Hug the other knee into your chest and stir that knee in a circle. The arms are doing the work, the leg is relaxed. If this is uncomfortable, make the movement smaller and not so close to your chest. Oftentimes that means that your hip flexors are just a little tight here, and that's what's making you uncomfortable. And then reverse the circle. And then place your hands around your thigh, reach your foot toward the ceiling until you feel a little gentle stretch. The knee may or may not be straight. And let's do little circles at our ankle. And then reverse the direction. And then we're going to do circles with our whole leg. So finish with your toes pointed. The knee can be straight or slightly bent. Hands are back down by your sides. And again, like that last bridge, let's press our arms down into the mat. The hips are going to hold still. That leg that's on the mat is going to hold still. And this leg's going to make really, they're called small leg circles in Pilates. And this is a Joseph Pilates exercise. But we're going to make them more oval shaped, although technically they're called small leg circles. Take your leg, cross it over your body just a little bit. Circle down towards the other foot. Around a little bit to the side and back up where you start. So it's a very long oval shape for these small leg circles. For breathing, I usually breathe in as I start the circle and breathe out as I circle around. My exhale helps me get that leg back up to the ceiling. Again, your choice for the breathing pattern, whatever is most helpful for you. And then reverse the direction. And then lower that leg straight down towards the other leg. Press it into the mat. Hug the other knee into your chest and stir your knee in a circle. Now in a moment, I'm going to teach you a classical Joseph Pilates exercise that I don't always do. It's how he used to start his classes. So you'll get an idea of like what it was like to be in a Joseph Pilates class. And just keep in mind that was the first exercise he used to do, and reverse the direction. And if I do it, I modify it or I move it down the line to a little bit later. And I'll show you, we're going to do a modified version of it, but I'll show you the classical version that you're welcome to do if you'd like. But we're going to do that momentarily. We're going to do our leg circles on this side, and then we'll do the 100. So stretching the leg up, the other leg is pressing down, little circles just at the ankle. And then reverse the circle. And finish with your toes pointed. You're going to place your hands down by your sides. Actively press the arms down for our leg circle. Cross your leg over, circle down around. Pause back at the ceiling. And these, they're called small leg circles. They're really oval. One more, and then reverse the direction. And lower back down. Okay, now for the 100, I'm going to teach you the arms first, and then I'll teach you the rest of the body. Start with both knees bent. And how I teach it, it's a breathing exercise where you're breathing in, breathing out, and the arms are pulsing 100 times. So most Pilates exercises, we do like 5 to 10 repetitions. We do a few amount of reps as best we can. That's the method with Pilates. We don't do a lot of repetitions. This is one exception. There's a couple of exceptions. This is one of them. So the arms, float both arms away from the mat. For now, I'm going to have you tap the mat as we pull the arms down. So practice just tapping your hands with the elbows straight. Your palms will touch the mat. And the breathing pattern is breathing in, breathe out. So nice deep breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. So notice that breath takes 5 seconds, 5 little taps. Breathing out takes 5, there's 10. 10 times 10 equals 100, so that's where the term 100 comes from. So now let's try that, and you have the option of either continuing to tap if that helps you keep the beat, or pausing the arms right before they smack the floor. That was how it's traditionally done. So either, again, keep tapping, or you can pulse the arms down, 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 but stop right before you hit the mat. Try that with a legs and tabletop if you'd like. Or another option is legs out to 45 degrees, which is how it's traditionally done. Okay, your choice. Leg position, knees bent, feet on the floor, legs out. Let's try breathing in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And lower back down. We've done 80 so far. We have 2 more sets to go. We give you one more option. If you have a healthy spine and you can do crunches, so no osteopenia or osteoporosis of the spine, you can do this version. Otherwise, with osteoporosis, keep the head on the floor. Okay, so osteoporosis, any other disc issues, keep the head flat. Otherwise, you're welcome to try the classical version. 2 more sets like this. So the chin's going to come to the throat, the head will lift, the shoulders are pulled forward. Again, optional. Everything else, see if you can do it. Her head flat. Here we go, 2 more sets. Breathing in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. And lower back down. And no, traditionally you'd be done with the head off the floor, the legs off the floor, and you do all 10 sets all in a row, and that's how he would have started his class. So on International Pilates Day, I wanted to give you a little historical background to how Joseph Pilates used to teach his classes. Start to roll over onto one side, and you might all be going, thank you, Jen, for not starting every Pilates class with the 100. So for sideline, I give options for arm positions. You can make a pillow with your arm. You could actually use an actual pillow. You can stretch your arm out straight and rest your head on your arm. You could also prop your head up. One note for this position, you have to watch that you don't start to slouch in this position. You have to really keep your shoulders down, your neck nice and long. I find this to be the hardest position to be in. I don't usually use this one because I'm too busy thinking about other body parts that are going to be moving. So, but if this feels the best for you, go ahead and do it. So find the position that you like the best. Hips will be stacked, top hip on top of the bottom hip. And there may be a tiny bit of space under this waist depending on your body shape. But you're just trying to get this hip on top of the bottom hip, top knee on top of the bottom knee, top foot resting on top of the bottom foot. Take your top hand, place it onto your hip with the elbow pointed up towards the ceiling. If you feel at any point you need more help balancing while we're sideline, put your hand on the mat right in front of your chest. Okay. You're going to keep the feet touching. Press the top foot into the bottom foot and pick the knee up and lower it. So clamshell, very typical exercise that you might do in a class, in any kind of exercise class. We use it in Pilates also. Not a traditional Joseph Pilates exercise, but it's a great way to lead up to some of his more advanced exercise. A couple more times, remembering breathing in on the easier part, breathing out on the harder part, your choice what that is for you. Now lift your entire leg. So the knee and the foot will lift and lower together. And I should check the time because we could end up doing Pilates for like 5 hours. Start throwing in the history of Pilates, and next thing you know, it's a 2-hour class. 2 more times. Keep the leg lifting. Point your kneecap down, point it up towards the ceiling. So we're rotating the biggest bone in our body, our femur bone, in the socket, one direction and the other direction. So we're rotating it in, rotating it out, where it's a medial rotation, lateral rotation. And we're keeping the pelvis pretty still for this one for today. And then we'll go into a more classical exercise. So keeping the kneecap pointed towards the ceiling, you're watching that the hips don't roll back. Hips are staying stacked. Going to make it harder to do. Can you straighten your knee and bend your knee? Keeping the thigh bone still, the leg trying to spiral out. Again, hips stay stacked. Whew, but you're going to feel your rear end back here. That's your goal. If you feel that, you're doing good. And then we'll go into classical exercise. You're going to straighten your knee. You're going to lower your leg down towards the mat and lift it back up, keeping that external rotation. And the classical version, there's always a little bit of crease at the hip. Lift your leg, bend your knee, and lower your knee. And give yourself a little massage. Then we're going to sit up and come to lying on the other side. Let's torture the other leg. So first, get in the position that feels the best for you. Arm out straight, arm bent, head propped. Those are your options. Go with whatever feels the best. And at any point, you can always change the position if you need to. Hips are stacked. Hand is on your hip, elbow up towards the ceiling. Or again, you could have the hand on the mat in front of your sternum. I started using this position when I started to switch to Zoom. Traditionally, the hand goes here. But I like this position because if I'm not actually in the room with you to help go, hey, move your pelvis this way, move your pelvis that way. I like this is a good way to go, okay, hand on my hip, elbow towards the ceiling. If the elbow starts to drop, then that means the shoulder's falling back and the hips are rolling. So that's a good way to help keep yourself in alignment without me actually being there to do any of that alignment for you. So hips, knees, and feet are stacked. Press the top foot down. You're going to pick the knee up, lower the knee back down. And they actually did some studies with people having personal trainers being very hands-on with them and making corrections versus people who were doing online classes, online workouts, who were told what to do, were given a verbal cue on what to do, and then had to follow the instructions. And the people who had to follow the verbal cues and fix themselves, it stuck better than the people who the personal trainer did the adjustments for them, essentially like kind of catered to them and like moved the pelvis that the instructor moved their hips or moved their arm or moved their leg. But with the person who was exercising had to do the work themselves, they benefited from it. So just keep that in mind. Any kind of exercise that you do, it's important that you, as the person exercising, that you're paying attention to what you're supposed to do. You're not just mindlessly doing whatever the instructor is telling you to do. You're really paying attention to what he or she is instructing you to do. And you fix yourself the best you can. And then they may come over and like tweak, give you a few more details, a little more feedback. But see how much you can do on your own. Your brain is going to benefit from it. So you're going to pick up your knee one more time. Now pick up the entire leg and lower it back down. And the hips are still holding still. The knee and the foot are lifting simultaneously. One more time. Finish with the leg lifting. Point your kneecap down. Point it up towards the ceiling. Can you do that without too much motion in the pelvis? Can you keep the pelvis pretty still? Now, there are little teeny tiny like micro movements that happen. Those are called bone rhythms. They're little teeny tiny kind of spiraling motions of our body that we don't necessarily feel. So to say that things are holding still, they're not really. They're just tiny, moving in like little teeny tiny motions. Finish with the kneecap aimed up towards the ceiling. Stay there. Keep the thigh bone still. Straighten your knee and bend your knee. And straighten your knee and bend your knee. Two more times. And then keeping that external rotation back to our Joseph Pilates exercise. You're going to lower the leg and lift the leg, keeping the external rotation, keeping the pelvis stacked. Make sure you're breathing, drawing your navel in towards your spine. One more time. Bend your knee and lower your knee. Give yourself a little rub. We're going to roll onto our back momentarily for a little stretch. This is called the figure 4 stretch. A lot of physical therapists use it. It's used in yoga also, as well as Pilates and all sorts of other exercise forms. Cross one ankle over the other knee and have your foot in a flexed position. Open that knee to the side as far as is comfortable. Keeping your head, your shoulders all the way down to your tailbone on the mat. So you're in a neutral position. Slide your hands around the thigh of the foot that's on the mat. You're going to pick that thigh up with your hands around. If you go, hey, Jen, I can't get to it. A belt, a scarf, a dog leash, a yoga strap, any of that can be placed around that thigh. And then you pull on that to pick the foot up off of the floor if you can't quite get your hands around that thigh. And a reminder, every time you're doing a held stretch called a static stretch, it should feel nice. It shouldn't be really, really intense. And the intensity should not be increasing as you hold it. That means you're going too deep and you run the risk of your body going, this hurts, and then locking up. And that's the opposite of what we want to happen. We want it to relax. So again, with a static or a held stretch, it should be comfortable. You should feel the stretch, but it shouldn't be painful. Lower your foot and switch sides, and it should not increase. Because the idea is as you're holding the stretch, you feel the stretch initially, and after a few moments, the stretching sensation starts to subside, and then you increase the stretch until you feel it again. And then when the stretchy feeling starts to subside, you'd continue increasing the stretch. So that's how static stretching works. There is active isolated stretching, which is a deeper stretching exercise, but it's only hold for a couple of seconds. So sometimes I use active isolated stretching instead of a static stretch. And that's a little different technique. And that when you go into a deeper stretch, you only hold it for 2 seconds. And then you release the stretch. And then lower your foot, uncross your legs. You're going to roll all the way over onto your stomach. You're going to have your arms in what's called cactus pose. This exercise I'm going to do is called swan. In Pilates and yoga, it is called cobra. I'm going to start with baby cobra, or baby swan. And our position for contemporary Pilates is oftentimes wide, which is called cactus pose in yoga. But if you prefer the narrow or more traditional position that's also used in yoga, you have the hands on the mat, the elbows squeezing in by the sides, and the tips of the elbows aimed set up towards the ceiling. That's also possible. I prefer this because I feel like it gives you a more even stretch in the back. This tends to stretch more of the lower back. But your choice. Can you try to lift your navel away from the mat, bring your shoulders down away from your ears, and barely float your forehead? And leg position. I have my legs kind of close together, but if that doesn't feel comfortable, you can move them apart if that feels better for your hips or your back or your legs. So my forehead is floating. My spine is nice and long. I'm trying to grow a little bit taller. And then I'm going to lift my chin just a tiny bit. From here, I have a little pressure into my forearms, into my hands. And I'm taking my chest forward. I'm trying to bend backwards at my bra strap. My bottom ribs are still on the mat. I'm going to stay here and breathe. So again, the navel, you're still trying to draw towards your spine. Bottom ribs are on the mat. So we can keep the curve for now to the upper back. And if you feel a strain in the back of the neck, that probably means you're lifting your chin too much. If you feel that strain in the neck or the front of your throat, drop the chin down just slightly. I'm looking down towards the front edge of my mat right now. And then if it feels good, you're going to push into your hands and start to pick up your elbows. If you go, oh, this is uncomfortable, slide your hands further forward and try it there. If anyone is recently postpartum and you feel a weird pull at your navel, adjust the hand position. That can happen to anyone, but it's more common right after you've had a baby. So slide the hands forward so there's a little less pull on those poor abdominal muscles that are still recovering. A couple more swans, and if you're like, none of these positions feel good, Jen, then just stick with the mini version where you keep the ribs, the bottom ribs on the mat. Just stay here and do a few more of those, just the mini swans if that feels better. And then place your hands underneath your forehead. If your legs are wide apart, bring them closer together. And you're like, keep the knees straight. Now here's a tip to do that. To get the knees straight, while your legs and the tops of your toes are on the mat, can you lift your kneecaps away from the mat and then relax them back down? And pick up the kneecaps and lower them. So if you struggle to get the knees fully straight, try that. Now, if you have hypermobile legs, you probably don't need to do this one. You don't need to think that hard. They'll straighten out all the way without too much effort. But if you have a tough time getting the knees straight, float both kneecaps and keep those kneecaps floating. My toes again are still touching the floor. I'm going to lift one leg, keeping that nice long straight leg, straight knee, lower back down and switch side. So again, I'm feeling as I lift my kneecaps away from the mat, I feel that stretch on the back of my knees. But if you're hypermobile, if you have flexible joints, don't think too much about this because then you'll end up with hyperextended knees. One more set. Now can you lift both legs? You're not going to go too high, really just thinking about lifting from those gluteal folds. So back here, bottom of the tush. And it's okay if your legs don't lift. Two more times. One more time. Lower your legs back down and just gently rock your pelvis side to side. I'm going to come onto hands and knees. On hands and knees, depending on, if you have sensitive knees, you could always double up your mat, grab a towel, grab a blanket, grab some pillows, and you can place it underneath your kneecaps. If you have sensitive feet, where being like this is just makes your feet start to cramp, you could grab a pillow and place it so that it goes from your knees down to just at the ankle crease. Here, I'll demonstrate. Actually, I have just a random pillow down here from back when I was pregnant. It's still hanging out down here. It hasn't gone anywhere. So here's my pillow. You can put your knees on the pillow and have your feet hanging off the back. So if having the shins and the feet pointed on the mat is just not comfortable, here's a nice position I'd recommend. Supports your knees and then allows the feet to dangle off the back. So that's a good option. And then for hands, same idea. You could roll up the front of your mat. You could grab a stack of books. And if you have sensitive wrists, you can let the fingers hang over the edge of your mat. I'd recommend trying to do some time with the hands in this position, just because it's good for the wrists, particularly for osteoporosis prevention. If after a while you're like, Jen, I can't handle it, you can always go onto your fists, like make a fist and go onto your knuckles. But your goal would be to be able to stretch the wrist out enough that you could go onto your hands. Pressing the fingertips down into the mat also is helpful. So elbows are straight, your shoulders are right above your hands, and your hips are right above your knees. And the top of your head is reaching forward. I'm looking straight down. And my sit bones and my tailbone is pointing straight back behind me, kind of like tail lights on a car. Keeping my spine in this nice long position, although you notice it's not straight. There is a curve there. There's a sway like a horse. There's a little bit of a sway back that we have. We have this nice little S kind of wave curve that happens when we're in neutral, but it does feel straight. Press again all 10 fingertips down into the mat. Either your middle fingers are pointed forward. If you go, Jen, that's just uncomfortable. Try spiraling the hands out a little bit so the pointer fingers are pointed forward. That might feel better on your wrist. Again, elbows are straight in a neutral spine. Let your chest relax towards the mat. So when it's like you're slouching down towards the mat, we're allowing the shoulder blades to glide together. And then lift your chest away from the mat. Let your chest relax like you're slouching down towards the mat. No, try not to let the head also drop. The spine staying nice and long. It's just our shoulder blades that are moving. And this can be a bit tricky because we don't have eyes. I mean, we tell our kids we have eyes in the back of our head, but we don't actually have those eyes back there. So it's hard to see what our shoulder blades are doing. So as the chest relaxes, our shoulder blades glide towards each other and towards our spine. And as our chest lifts, feel those shoulder blades move away from each other and wrap around the rib cage. This exercise may not seem like much, but it's really cool because it's a great exercise that works the connection from the back of our body to our front of our body. It is a major connection. We have muscles that wrap around from here, from our shoulder blades, and we have our abdominals that are here, and they do this. It's called, they interdigitate. They look like little serrated edges, like on a serrated knife, and they link together. So this exercise actually helps support that connection of our serratus anterior, which wraps around into our oblique abdominals. Like I said, today is a special day. You can get all sorts of information. Why sternum drop, this simple exercise, is so good for us. One more time. Now, can you, either with the toes pointed or you can turn the toes under, take a deep breath in. You're going to breathe out. Draw your navel in towards your spine. Can you lift both kneecaps barely off of the mat? And then lower back down. Again, if you need to modify, feel free to come onto your fists for a moment. Try that again. Start your exhale. Lift both kneecaps. Breathe in and lower. One more time. Can you stay there and hold? If not, come back down and then try it again. And then lower back down. We're going to come up to stand. You have a couple of options. You could step one foot forward and come up to standing. If you want a moment in downward dog, the stretch, feel free to lift the kneecaps off and come into downward dog. But for some people, depending on, health conditions or how they feel, whether it's, vertigo or it's the blood pressure issues, this may not be so good for you. So you don't have to do downward dog if you don't want to. Feel free to come straight up to standing. If you're in downward dog, walk your hands to your feet or your feet to your hands. Either roll up to standing or you can come into a neutral spine and then come up to standing. Your choice. So that or this. And then everyone together with their feet. Again, slightly narrower than our hips. We think of these are our hips, but they're actually not. They're actually our leg bones. It's called your greater trochanter. It's actually part of this guy. That's the width here. We're lining up our feet with the little bones right here. That's what we're lining our feet up with. Our ischial tuberosities are our sit bones, which actually are where our pelvis is, rather than our leg bones. Find your big toes all the way across to your pinky toes in the center of each heel. All 10 toes are pointed forward. Kneecaps are also pointed forward. Again, kind of like our tail lights in the back. These are our headlights in the front. You're going to swing the arms forward, like you're reaching forward. Stick your rear end out. Aim those kneecaps forward. Notice the space between my knees is the same here, or pretty close to the same here, as when they come up to standing. So you're watching that as you come into your squat, the knees don't bump into each other, or they don't go further apart. Can you keep that space about the same? The weight on your feet should be about the same. And we're not doing a massive major squat today, so you're going to stay pretty much in neutral. Okay, we're going to focus on opening up our pelvic floor, open up those hip bones, and then narrow the pelvic floor. So if you want to throw in some Kegels, here's another chance to do it. So you're going to breathe in, no Kegel. Do your Kegel and stand up straight. Relax your pelvic floor. Activate your pelvic floor. Elevator goes down. Elevator goes up. hold on to a tampon and let the tampon go. One more time, you're gonna reach up towards the ceiling. Find your weight on one foot. So shift it onto one foot. The other foot could be touching the mat. It could be resting gently on top of the foot you're standing on. It could be hovering off the mat. Yoga tree pose, your choice. While you're hanging out there, let's do some arm circles. And then reverse the circle. And then switch feet. So notice that there's a weight shift, but the hips stay. I have a nice, perfect sweater and shirt on here today. You can see that as I pick up the other foot, I have not unleveled my pelvis. I'm not lifting my leg that high, not high enough to do that. So my pelvis still stays level. There's just a shift to the side. And let's do our arm circles. Lower your foot back down. Reach your fingertips forward. See if you can grow a little bit taller. Find your big toe to your pinky toe in the center of your heel. That is called a tripod foot. Okay, those 3 points, big toe, pinky toe, heel. Open your arms out to a T. Make sure that in your peripheral vision, you can still see your thumbs. If you wiggle them, you can see them wiggling. You can stop the wiggling. Grow a little bit taller without lifting the chin. Float your arms down by your sides and just let them hang there. Close your eyes if that feels safe. Feel how open your chest feels, that the shoulders are soft and relaxed, like there's no gripping in the shoulder blades. You'll notice that your thumbs are pointed forward and the palms are facing your legs. One more breath. And you're all done today. Again, happy International Pilates Day.